I'm Christina.
And I'm Matt.
And this is New Ways Podcast. Today, our guest is a nurse and a nursing professor, a life and relationship coach, as well as a mental health advocate. She's deeply passionate about health promotion, disease prevention, and improving quality of life through holistic approaches. Founder of Camelia Health, empowering others to live their healthiest, happiest lives. Camelia Sehat, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here and dive into this conversation with you two.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We are super excited to have you. And I kind of want to share with you guys something that's really cool that I found out today is your last name actually means health.
Yes, it does.
Did you know that, Matt?
No.
In what language is that?
Well, I'm Iranian Armenian.
Okay.
But the last name is Arabic. So in Arabic, Sehat means health. And there's actually a ton of like shampoo brands and all sorts of things like that in Iran that have my last name on it, but we don't own any of them.
That is, I was like, that is perfect. That is perfect.
No, it's not.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Right?
Because it's not like Johnson. It's like the American version.
Yeah, no, definitely not a Johnson equivalent.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's so cool.
Right. I thought that was the coolest thing. But jumping right in then, I guess. So you are a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, is that how your kind of health career started, was in nursing?
No, I actually started out being a chemical biologist.
Oh, wow.
So I did some research for a few years because I had studied basic science. And after a few years of that, I realized I'm really missing the human connection aspect of life. I'm literally in a lab dealing with cells and mice and a few coworkers who are 30 plus years older than me. And I just I wasn't fully fulfilled. So when I was doing research at Cedars, I went to the volunteer department one time and I said, hey, I'm doing this research. It's paid work, minimum wage, but I would really like to volunteer with patients. So what can I do? And I was so excited about it. And they were like, oh, you can walk around and pass water. I thought, how boring is it? You want me to pass around water? I can do so much more than that. So anyway, I kept pushing and pushing. They created a position for me where I could shadow anesthesiologists in the OR because I told them I love surgery. And I did that on my weekends. So Monday through Friday, I was doing research. Then Saturday, Sundays, basically doing the volunteer work with patients. And that's when I actually learned about nursing. I was grateful that I had never been hospitalized in my life before. And I didn't spend much time in hospitals, but I always played doctor when I was a kid. So I only knew of doctors or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was like, who are these people who keep coming in and out of the rooms, checking on the patient? Because the doctor does a surgery and they're gone. So what's happening later? And then I realized, oh, these are nurses, 12.5-hour shifts. They're there the whole day caring for the patient. I was like, this is what I want to do. So that's when I transitioned to nursing, and I went to nursing school and then got my master's in public health and then started doing nursing and education at the same time. Oh, wow. So it wasn't a straight road.
You know, one thing that you brought up is that you started sort of your journey as a volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
And actually I did the same.
Oh, wow.
As a therapist. Yeah, I started in the pediatric PICU unit as a volunteer, just working with kids. And I was like 18, 19 years old. And that to me, like, that was one of like the first moments you realize you're like, whoa, like this work is incredible. Yeah. And so like, did you have a very specific moment where you realized you're like, oh, this is when I wanted to do nursing?
That's a great question. Yeah, there was this lady who got a double hip replacement. And I remember she had a tattoo on her right hip and she was much, much older. She was like she was 78, I think, or 80. Super cute, super active. You could tell she was a surfer lady when she was younger. She was adorable. And as soon as the surgeon was about to cut, I noticed he was going to cut on the turtle mark. And I was a volunteer, so you're supposed to kind of be a fly in the wall, staying in the back. And I all of a sudden was like, excuse me. And then I was like, oh my God, they're either going to fire me or they're just going to take my advice. And he kind of looked up like, who are you in the back? Yeah. There's like 20 people in the OR. And I was like, would it be possible to cut in a way where we don't destroy her tattoo? And then he literally had the scalpel in his hand and he thought for a moment, he's like, thank you for that. I didn't even notice that. I was just going to cut in a place. And so anyway, so he cut around it. And later when the lady woke up, we were chatting and she was like, my biggest concern, and I didn't know this before, was that they wouldn't ruin my tattoo. And she had such a deep story and connection with that tattoo. So I thought the fact that I care so much and I see so much of the human, it's not just, hey, we're just here to do this operation and then you're out. And then later I was like, yeah, we made sure, I didn't say I did it, but I was like, we made sure to preserve that and whatnot. And afterwards, she was just so grateful and so thankful. And the fact that I was with her for a few hours until she basically got transferred to a different ward, I just had such a deep connection with her that I thought, I want to do this forever. I want to be with patients. I want to make them feel better. And for me, even if I help one patient a day, even from back then, it was just enlightening for me. It was just such a huge feeling of goodness inside my body that I was like, this is what I want to do. So that night I went and I started applying for nursing schools. So I'm glad you asked that question.
Matt's face right now is like, what?
No, I mean, it's amazing.
That is such an incredible experience, especially too, because like as a nurse, even doing bedside, you get to see the patient, you get a feel for their personality and what's really important to them. And a lot of times patients it's a very traumatic situation when they're in the hospital. Nobody actually wants to be there. They're there because they are sick a lot of times. Yeah. So it's very easy for them to forget things that they want to advocate for themselves. And that's where our job comes in. And I think it's absolutely beautiful that even before you spoke up, because that's the thing is like, I'm huge on that in hospitals. I'm like, we do need to speak up because that's how we show the doctors how to show up for us more. And as well as like get confidence in the medical field. So I just want to applaud you for doing that because I know nurses to this day who are scared to speak up to some doctors. And I always encourage them, especially when I do have students in like the hospitals. I'm like, please, if you see something, say something.
Absolutely.
Because you actually never know how big of an impact you can make. Like I've saved lives just from noticing little things that doctors have not noticed.
Absolutely. And we're the ones who are spending the majority of the time with the patients anyway. Yeah. So it is our job and duty to notice those things and advocate for our patients, of course, as well as advocating for ourselves if we see something that's off. But I do think that a lot of nurses who are good, who've gone through the right education, the right training, we have this intuitive feeling that all of a sudden it's like, okay, something's off. So this is besides the tattoo issue, but I think this happens a lot in hospital settings where the nurse feels it, but if they don't have the assertiveness to them or they haven't been empowered to speak up about it, then they're just kind of like, oh, if I say something, what if it's wrong? What if it's not right? They skip over it and then the patient suffers. So I think it is good that we empower, like you're empowering the trainers or the trainees. Yeah. And I'm telling my students the same.
I was going to say, I'm sure you do the same with your students.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I get where it's definitely like a little terrifying going to a doctor because especially too, if you are a new nurse, like you view them as like these higher up in a sense, like God, like people, right? They're saving lives. They're doing surgeries. And it's like, what if I'm wrong? Right. But the thing is a good surgeon, a good doctor will never reprimand you for speaking up. Yeah. Like I'm big on education. So please do that. And I just want to applaud you for that. So over the years then, how did you see like your nursing skills come into play and bring you to where you're at right now? Like your experiences in the hospital?
So I started out as a labor and delivery nurse because that was always my true passion. So anywhere I applied, I first would put labor and delivery, even though the dean of the nursing program also told me, please put med surg first because that's what everybody will hire. And I was like, I don't want to work in med surg. I want to do labor and delivery and women's health. So I started out there. Then after a year plus, I went to med surg because I was like, do I really want to spend the next 20, 30 years of my life just in L&D very specialized? I thought, no, I want to get more experience and then later I can go back. So I did that. Then when I was in med surg, within a matter of 9 months to a year, I thought I've seen all the cases I could see. I don't feel like I'm learning much now. I know what I'm doing. And I had great mentors there. Yet I thought it's exciting because every day you go in, it's a different case. Yet I thought I want to do more. I want to keep learning. I want to grow. And of course, we know that when you teach people, you learn best. So I remember we had one of the nurses that I worked with on the floor. One day she showed up to work. She was one of my coworkers, usually with scrubs, and then she was wearing this white coat. And I thought, what are you wearing today? And she said, I'm a nursing instructor. And I thought, I want to be a nursing instructor because I was already precepting new grads, even though I hadn't even been at this med-surg unit for a year. And she said, sweetie, she was such a cute lady, sweetie, in 5 or 6 years, you can apply to be a nursing educator.
Wait, so how long into nursing were you at this point?
Less than 2 years.
Okay.
But big goals and ambitions.
Yeah. Just fast track.
Yeah.
There you go.
Everything in my life has literally been fast tracked. So I applied and the requirement said 5 to 6 years of nursing education as a professor. I thought, I'm just going to apply and see what happens.
Good for you.
Got a call, had the interview scheduled, had to cancel once because a family member passed away. I was like, they're never going to call me back. They called me and said, hey, when do you want to reschedule? Had to cancel again for another thing. And I thought, this is for sure no. Third time, hey, would you like to come in for an interview? I thought, okay, this is the universe saying, please come do an interview with us because this is probably the next step for you. Did the interview and I got to meet the director of nursing of the school. And she was lovely, and we chatted, and I thought she's going to say I look like a baby because I always look much younger than my age besides my experience on the resume. And the next day they called me and they said, we'd like to hire you. And I thought, this is amazing. So I went to my coworker and I said, guess what? Here's my offer letter. She was like, I can't believe this. So we're both working at the same school, even though she had 25 years of experience and I had 2.
Oh my gosh.
So it worked out, and I've been teaching ever since. So now I've been a nursing professor for about 8.5 years, and it's been lovely. I love it. I know that I'm great at it. I'm not good at telling people what I'm great at, but that I'm really good at because I bring real life skills to it. I don't just go based off the book. It's, hey, what I've seen other nurses do, what I've seen amazing nurses do, and what I've seen terrible nurses do. And then I always tell the students, hey, you make your own path. Just make sure you're confident, you're doing the work, you're doing the skills, and ask questions. Ask questions, and when something doesn't feel right, speak up about it, and they might say no. Yeah. So basically went from all of that to education, and then I thought, okay, well, I want to do more. So I did some concierge IV, and then after that, I did some medical consulting. And with my background in chemical biology, that kind of came in every aspect that I was doing bigger things in nursing. Because of course, at the base of it, yeah, we talk about hand washing, but of course.
Like, to this day, that's the only thing you hear everybody saying. It is literally the most basic thing I heard. Yeah.
And I feel like it only became common knowledge, kind of, when COVID happened. I was like, did we really need to wait for COVID and a serious pandemic to start learning how to wash our hands and cough in our elbows?
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it's kind of just proven. And so many people in the world are guilty of this, though, is nobody actually makes a change until you are kind of forced to make a change. That's the thing. But I can relate to, like, in front of every single door, it's like, please wash your hands, please wash your hand. I'm like, I get it. We know these things. But yeah, a lot of times it does take drastic measures, especially too during COVID in the hospital setting is like, that's when you did see the nurses and the doctors who actually cared, who were good and like wanted to be versatile and just help. And the ones who were like, not to be this person, but the people who were only in it for a paycheck, because those were the people who wouldn't go in the rooms, who were not working as a team, because this is a new thing that we all experienced that nobody knew nothing about. So you had to work as a team to figure out the best way to help.
Exactly.
You know, but that is just such an incredible story. And if anything too, what I want to like encourage people, like the message I got from that is if you have a itch, please follow it, regardless of what anybody is telling you. You did it after 2 years and somebody's like, oh, when you have like 5 or 7, right? What's meant for you will always work out. And you do have the teacher mentality and personality where it's like, if you're coming from a good place and you're personable and you just want these young people to learn, they have something to learn from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that is so beautiful.
Thank you. And for me, it was also this thing that I became a nurse to help patients. Yeah. And I realized at the hospital, I was limited to a ratio of 1 nurse to 5 to 6 patients. Yet when I help train, I'm literally getting chills telling you this. When I help train amazing nurses, each amazing nurse that I get to train goes out and helps 5 to 6 patients each day. And I think by now I've probably trained more than 1,000 nurses. And it just makes me so happy because I've seen people draw blood from me and not know what they're doing. I got COVID vaccines where they literally hit the needle to my bone and I thought, who trained you? Like you should not be here poking people. So yeah, I love educating and I tell them, I say, and because sometimes they get intimidated. They're like, oh, you're so young and you're kind of a badass. And I say, thank you, but I'm trying to turn you into that. Mm-hmm. You're going to be an extension of me because I'm not going to be around forever. Right. And I want to create little mini-me's who really care, not just about the person, but also about the science, also about the skills. And they're just prepared to care. And also another thing for me that's huge is empathy. I feel like a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
And they become nurses. The first thing I ask my nursing students, why are you choosing nursing? Why are you here? Mm-hmm. Right. Even if I'm substituting for another instructor and I only have them for 8 hours or 12 hours, why are you doing nursing? And about 10 to 20% still say good pay and a stable job. And I can't tell you how cringy that makes me feel because I'm thinking, at least lie about it. You heard 10 other stories that were phenomenal. Just say, I really care about humans. At least like fake it until you actually care. Yeah. And then you see that the empathy doesn't exist for some. So that is another part of the training that I add into it, whether we're with patients or if not, I say, imagine this was your grandmother. Imagine this is your husband or your wife. Yeah. And I really go deep into it. So it's not just a sentence. Mm-hmm. I say, if that was your grandmother, would you treat them that way? If this was your kid.
If this was you in the bed, would you want to be treated that way? That's something that I always remember. Like,
Exactly.
why I have somebody's life in my hand right now. They're going through a really, really tough time. Also, too, it's funny you said that because you want me to tell you my reason I went into nursing.
Yeah, I would love to hear that.
It was that reason. It was literally when I was thinking about going to college. I tell people all the time, a lot of the things that I do in my life, I have no idea how they have found me. I was just like, this seems like a good idea, so I'm going to do it. And when I was younger, I was definitely, nursing's probably, if anything, helped me become an empathetic person and go down this route that I'm on of health and wellness even more. Because when I was looking what kind of job I wanted to go into, like I was in a really rough place anyways. I saw a lot of my friends graduate and couldn't get jobs. So I'm like, what's something I think I can do that's going to make it? I did say make a difference, but I'm like, essentially I went into it because it's a study. You're always going to have a job and it's decent pay. But what nursing did teach me was that like spiritually and mentally and like physically, the human body and experience is absolutely beautiful. And it's taught me how connected we are and how to have a stronger empathy. So I've also seen nurses who went in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and walk out. And I'm sorry, I do feel like our system sometimes is set up to make nurses less empathetic because we are so heavily worked a lot of times.
Yeah.
So I see both sides. I see people who go in for the right reasons and then they just like get heartbroken and it's tough on them and they lose their empathy. And then nursing's literally like saved my life in a way when it comes to empathy. It's what allowed me to have it again.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm so glad that you shared that because it shows that things can flip. But for me, when I see these nursing students in the school environment, I'm just so worried that they're going to show up there and really not know what they're doing and just think, because the other day we were doing CPR training and I noticed one student, like let's say their friend got a 99%, this one put her badge, took a photo. And I said, when your patient is coding and they're about to die, are you going to call your bestie and ask them to come jump on the bed and do CPR? I need you to do it. You can cheat your way all you want, but you're going to jeopardize patient care at the end, right?
Oh, completely. I agree with you.
So for me, I also focus on that. It's great that for you it flipped and now you have that aspect inside to you that you also bring to the table when you're training nurses. And I think it's just such a great quality to have in life. We can connect deeper. We can truly feel seen and make others feel seen. Yeah. So for me, empathy is just such a huge thing. And it's just been such a huge part of my life. I don't even know where I learned it from. I think it was just actually a lack of it in my life from my parents that I thought I don't feel seen and heard most of the time. So it's just automatically you do with your life what you wanted done for you.
Exactly. No, completely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, I don't want others to feel that way. And then after a while, I was like, oh, I'm doing empathy training. How did I end up here?
Well, that's how I felt with nursing. I'm like, I felt called to do it because like logically it made sense. But now I'm here and I'm like, this has just brought me so much beauty. And like I said, like I needed that when I was younger too. And that's why right now I had that answer that you didn't want to hear. But I can say like, and I hope Matt would agree just by seeing me and like hearing my stories is like, I consider myself a great nurse. Like I consider myself like somebody who genuinely cares about optimizing like a patient's health and giving them the best experience possible. You know what I mean? So you are also a life and a relationship coach as well too. So how about you kind of explain to us how you transitioned from that one field into this other one? I believe they're very closely intertwined, but when I tell people I'm a coach, they're like, what? How'd you go from this to,
Yeah, for sure. You're absolutely right. They definitely are intertwined.
Yeah.
And for me, I noticed I was already doing this with my patients as a nurse. I was talking to them about, hey, if you have, for example, let's just start with health coaching. I wasn't even calling it that. Yes, I got my master's in public health, yet I didn't get it to become a health coach. I was just always interested in educating others in living a happier, healthier life. That was my mission. Let's prevent disease, let's promote health, and then help you live the best life. We only get one shot at this, depending on what belief you have. But
one shot at this one, you guys, at this one. But yes.
So let's make the best of it. So I started talking to my patients in a different way. And I noticed the shift. And the next day they would come in and they'd be like, oh, I feel so much better. Or I would see them on the street, or 2 weeks later, they would just come and be like, oh, I had a doctor visit downstairs, but I wanted to come and thank you for such and such that you said. It really helped me. And I thought, oh, this is great. I love doing this. I never thought I could make a living off of it. I just thought, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this. So for many years, I was doing it for random people at grocery stores. Somehow people are attracted to me. They come, they start talking, sharing their life story at the gym, walking my dog at 7 a.m. The stories I hear at the most random hours of the day from random strangers was phenomenal. And I thought, okay, I really love doing this. Let me dig a little bit deeper and see how I can do this even more. Instead of the random person who I cross paths with because of proximity, because I'm walking my dog here, how can I reach more people?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started to do a lot of research to see how I can kind of make a bigger impact. And I thought, okay, I need to start with me first, because there was a lot of things that I still needed to heal before I got into it. Because being an empath, being a highly sensitive person, there were a lot of human stories that I would hear and it would break me down. So I would be able to help them, but I would be standing there crying with them and hurting. And I don't mind that side, but I thought, okay, if I become so debilitated where now I'm hurting more than you about your life story, how am I going to help you?
Yeah.
My point is to help you get through this. And then later I learned that also there's beauty in sharing the tears and sitting in it with them. So after going through dark night of the soul for myself and a divorce and a lot of different things, I did a lot of personal growth and development conferences and seminars and reading a lot of books and podcasts. I was literally in like a deep dive for like 8 years. As I was doing my jobs, I was also doing that on the side whenever I had a moment, driving, walking my dog, gym. There wasn't a moment that I was even listening to music. I remember at one point, it had been probably like 3 years that, no joke, I had not listened to music in my car. I thought, this is a bit weird. Like, am I obsessed? Do I have an addiction to just learning? I'm not listening, because I would sit in friends' cars and they would play music and I'm like, I feel like my brain's getting wasted and I need to learn. And I was just like, I was literally becoming an addict to it. And I thought, okay, you can keep learning until the end of time. There is no stop. There is no end. So let's just try to utilize this to help others.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the meantime, you're still learning, you're still growing. You're not going to be left behind if you listen to music sometimes on your drive. So then I transitioned and I started helping people, and it was really hard to charge money for it because it came so naturally to me. And that's always been an issue. And talking to my therapist about it, talking to my best friend who's also a therapist. And she's like, yeah, but you've spent money to learn and grow and have all these tools that you're helping people. So you should just charge people. And so for me, it's become this thing where if you have the means to afford it, and we do a sliding scale just like therapists, because I want to make it affordable. I don't think only the wealthy should get the mental health and the services and the help that they need, but I also need to make a living. And hence I still do my nursing on the side. And then I'm doing my life, and I call it love coaching, but it's relationship coaching as the secondary thing. And the relationship coaching is not just relationship to others and to an intimate partner. It's also to self. It starts with self.
It does.
And for me, it started with self, because I was married to a lovely human being. Yet I thought at some point I was like, I'm just not happy. What's going on? And I thought, it's not even him. It's not my job. It's not my dog. It's not my house. It's me. There's something internal that I've constantly pushed down and pushed under the rug for many years. And for me, my biggest addiction besides learning was work before I got into the deep dive of the self-growth and personal development. So I would just work myself to the bones for a period of 8.5 years. I had 4 different jobs, 2 of which were full-time. And then eventually I reached burnout. And so when I was trying to bring myself out of the burnout, I learned that I can help others do the same. So that's when I transitioned to doing the life coaching, the relationship coaching. And I truly enjoy doing it. After every session I have with my clients, I feel so pumped with energy and just good vibes in my body that I'm literally vibrating from excitement. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. I can't believe that this is actually a thing that we get to do and help each other in that way. And I never considered myself a health coach, because for the longest time I was like, what is this? You go and you get a certification for 6 months to a year, and then you're called a health coach.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, literally a 20-year-old can become a health coach, right? Versus an 80-year-old with all the life experience. So because I had the public health background and the emphasis on that was community education, I started out as a wellness educator. And it wasn't necessarily the woo-woo stuff. Oh, let's do breath work and sound baths and yoga, which I love, and I do all of them.
Oh, I love the woo-woo stuff.
Yeah,
so
I do
much.
too. I do
but
too.
But sometimes it's like, that's the thing is like with me and my coaching too, I'm like, I just want to be able to reach people on their level too.
Yes.
And as much as we love the woo-woo stuff, it's not everybody's cup of tea. So you kind of have to meet people where they're at in order to help them to the best of your ability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's where it kind of comes in, where I can bring in this stuff. Oh, you want to lose weight? Okay, let's talk about let's make a curriculum for you. Doesn't have to be the woo-woo stuff, you know? And then if somebody's like, I just don't feel connected to myself and I want to tap more into my feminine. Okay, well, we got to bring in some of the woo-woo stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So I love it. It brings me a lot of joy, and I truly get to see the transformation in my clients, and it just makes me so happy. And one thing I'll say about this, the last thing, is that with the relationship coaching, I don't like to create dependency. So I don't want them to keep coming back to me. So I do 1 to 2 sessions max. And if later they want some sort of support because they're going through a crisis down the line, totally fine, they can reach out. But I've had clients who come to me and they say, we've been doing couples coaching for 2 to 3 years and we're not getting anywhere. We have one session, couple weeks to a month or so later, I'm getting all these amazing photos of them doing great. Like literally you see them being in such a good place together. And I think this is how it should be. Because I've also done couples therapy. I've been a client. I'm like, where are we getting with this? I sometimes feel like I knew more than the therapist. And I'm by no means a therapist. But some of the ones that I had, I was like, are you really helping us? Or do you just want us to sit here and tell our stories and you listen and then you get paid and then that's the end of the session and we come for another year and a half? So I want to hear your perspective on therapy.
That's really true, because the problem is that I think that a lot of therapists as well, sometimes, well, a big thing that I think a lot of therapists deal with is figuring out how to balance dynamics. Because a big differentiation between health coaching and or holistic, coaching versus, psychotherapy is that we can't tell you the answer.
Yeah.
And so versus health coaching, we tell you the answer. And so that to me was one of the biggest differences, because I would have clients where I would know what to do. I would know what to tell them. But at the end of the day, I needed them to figure it out for themselves.
So it's actually a rule that you're not supposed to say this is what you should be doing in therapy?
I mean, it's yes and no. I would say that like it's kind of just more frowned upon because it's not deemed ethical. Because you need someone to figure out for themselves how they're going to go about that process. And I like to say that, your client's on a train and you're building the train tracks. What direction they choose to build those train tracks is up to them. But if you're there to build the train tracks, they can keep moving forward. Yeah. And so it gives a very different perspective. But yeah, no, very absolutely.
True. So I love that. And I do think they're different. It doesn't mean that if you're doing therapy, you don't need the coaching. And if you're doing coaching, you don't need the therapy. I love what you said, that they're just literally different. You're helping them come up with the solutions, where sometimes I can be like, hey, this is what's happening. This is what you guys need to do. You choose if you want to do it or not. And I always tell my clients, I say, if at a certain point I feel like you guys need actual psychotherapy, I'm going to mention that. Yeah. It's not like I'm here to heal everybody. I can't heal everybody. No. There's different specialties and different people who are great at what they do. And that's why we all have different jobs, because each of our jobs serves a different purpose.
Absolutely. And I think too, so also is that like one thing that, and I mean, granted, there's arguments for this, but also too is like when I look at a lot of health coaching, I look at a lot of stuff more that's much smaller. Like we look at smaller issues. But when I deal with, for example, in psychotherapy, when I deal with like traumas and like very heavy hitting, events in people's lives, then it sort of creates that like a split for me, and being able to like, okay, this person, like what you're dealing with, like, and I've told clients this too, when I've, in psychotherapy, I'm like, listen, there's so many things that you and I can talk about. But that being said, like you're really wanting to, focus on you and your everyday wellness, like getting a personal trainer, start going to yoga once a week, talk to people in a yoga community that you feel is going to be really helpful for you. Talking about different aspects of, we met at a health and wellness event. Yeah. That's the thing. Like that was what I tell people, like, go to these events, go to try something new, try this, but when you're dealing with, those traumas and everything, it's like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's figure this out together. And then that creates a very different space.
For sure. And it's about also helping the people take tolerable steps, right?
Yes.
We can tell them that. And I can tell people, hey, yeah, go as a coach. I can tell them, hey, yeah, go meet people. But you're absolutely right. If they have deep rooted traumas, they're not gonna. But if sometimes they just want a supporter and a motivator, a health and a life coach is great for that.
Yep. Yeah.
And you guys do the deep dive of, I've done a lot of trauma work myself. I've read about it and I've had therapy for it, but I don't do that for clients.
Yeah.
As soon as I notice it, I'm like, okay, that's for another specialist, not for me.
Yeah.
And I do think it's important to deal with those things, because if you just say, hey, now grab your best buddy and go to this health and wellness event, and the person's going to be depressed and their nervous system is going to be overwhelmed there, then they're actually taking a few steps back.
Yep.
So yeah, it's good to keep all that in mind, that all of these professions are necessary and each one serves a different purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really about just like listening to yourself and what you need and finding your flow, and then like definitely take the steps to find somebody that you trust to help you. But that person that you're putting trust in, if you don't feel like it's flowing, a lot of times, like you said, that person will notice something that might also need to be attended to, and they will point you in the right direction. So you do have to start somewhere. But if you have somebody good, they will tell you, like, try this, I can't help you, I can't help you. It all just starts with starting. And I think it's beautiful how now we have all these different modalities. And I think it's so beautiful. So I had you write down a list of resources that we are going to link in this episode of things that have been beneficial to you in the wellness community and throughout your journey. One of your books was The Body Keeps Score.
Yes.
And I feel like that's something that we don't talk about a lot either, because it's like that's oftentimes something that like coaches can't help with necessarily, that even therapists can't, because I will admit sometimes trauma is stored in your body and your body is trying to protect you, so you can't even recall it or talk about it. And that's where body work comes in. Have you ever had any experience with body work?
I have, and it's been phenomenal. And when I entered it, I actually did my first session in Cambodia. And I thought, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm open to it. So I literally went, I laid on the bed. This guy did some chanting. He wasn't even touching me. His hands were like above, and he wore this like funky mask. And I'm not saying that you should have a person who's doing all these things, but this is how my experience was for the first time. And then when I was done, I asked him, I said, hey, so what? He's like, yeah, you released a lot. And I got up and I was like, I don't really know what that means. Okay. What came out for you? Because apparently he would get visions. And he said certain things that him and I had not talked about that I thought, oh my God, you just gave me so much to think about, because something happened here.
Yeah.
Where this guy, and I'm intuitive, but I don't think on his level. I don't know what he really did, because later we talked about it for an hour.
Did you feel different?
I did feel different eventually for the next coming few days. And then I found a body worker also in Cambodia who some people recommended, and they said, she's amazing. You go and she releases everything from your body. And I thought, 38 years of trauma is going to come out in a session. Let's go and see what this is about. I didn't really believe it. And like, how can everything come out? But let's go. I went to her and she kept pressing and pressing. No joke. Her elbows and thumbs would be all over, literally also in my abdominal area. And I'm thinking, you're going to burst the spleen, or like something's going to burst. This is not okay. And so the whole time going like I'm not literally letting anything out. The session finishes and she's like, you have an issue letting go. And I said, yeah, where'd you get that from? She's like, you didn't cry or scream. And I was causing you so much pain. And I said, I could do that? And she's like, yeah, that's the purpose of this. That's how you release. So basically you need to verbally, like that's why people do like shaking work or like the crying, the tears, right? And I was like, maybe you should have a sign in English somewhere that says you can scream and yell and cry, because I'm thinking I'm getting a massage. There's neighbors around. Like, yes, it's painful. I was crying from the pain. Anyway, the next time I went, I cried, and like not like crazy ugly cry, but I cried in the pillow, and I went 7 more times, but she would bruise you. And after that, I thought, I don't think I need this anymore.
Yeah.
I can cry on my own very easily, but it definitely helped. And it definitely helped release some blockages and knots and things of that sort. And I joked with her and I said, 38 years worth of trauma won't come out in one session. I'm happy to keep coming, but please don't like kill me in one session. But I've done it and I do believe it works. And when I read that book, in the book, Bessel van der Kolk goes into detail about different modalities that you can use to help yourself. Like he talks about EMDR. I, as not a psychotherapist, I am not trained in EMDR, can't do it on my own, so I need to go to a professional. Yet there are other simple things that he mentions, like breath work, like noticing, you can become a breath work facilitator, but just by controlling your breathing and just observing it, you start to tap into your nervous system and just be more tuned in. Oh, I'm feeling stressed. Oh, this isn't sitting well with me, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that book. It changed my life. And from time to time, I go back to read it again. And it does have parts where it's very scientific. So I say, if you want to read it, don't get overwhelmed when you get to that part. Just kind of take it with a grain of salt. And then he goes over the simple stuff again. And he kind of explains how if 2 people experience the same trauma, how they will both experience it differently.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that's important to keep in mind as a human, right? I meet you two. You two could have had the same experience, but you're going to completely...
All the time. Everyone's living in their own reality, not each other's.
Exactly.
So I completely agree with that. I have a question for you in regards to that woman then. Even if there was a sign, do you think you would have allowed yourself to go crazy?
I would not have gone crazy for sure, but I would have felt comfortable enough to at least cry, because I felt like I was being a baby by crying.
Really?
Yeah.
But who told you that crying was like being a baby?
During a massage? I mean, if my head is in a donut and I'm getting a massage or I get fancy pants massages here, very different. Like something gets released, they press on my neck. Almost always a few tears will drop on the floor. And I'm like, I hope their shoe is in there. They're going to feel it. But this lady, I mean, oh my God. I wish somebody had videoed this experience.
Well, because I do that type of therapy actually. On and off for like the past 2 years, I've found somebody here in LA where she will literally like poke.
Like ring you out.
Oh, girl. Like, but the thing is, it's so weird though, because I also like, I tell people this all the time is like growing up as a child, it was a very interesting environment. And like, I used to joke that I could be in a burning building and just like, this is okay. Like, nothing's that big of a deal. It's all right. It's so funny though, because it took her a long time to get me to this level, but it got to a point where she would poke an area and it hurt so bad. The second I actually gave it all that I had, like no holding back. Like, I'm pretty sure anybody seeing me would think I was being tortured. It was scary. She still would continue to push the same. It didn't hurt anymore.
Yeah, because you're releasing it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the whole
but
point
that's
of
yeah,
it.
you have to let it out. So many people I feel like are so controlled all the time because that's what we're trained to be. Like, control yourself. Don't show these emotions. It's not the right time. That's not appropriate. But it's like, if you need to let it out, because if you don't, it's gonna be in here and it's gonna continue to affect you for long periods of time.
Yeah, and what I would say about that is let it out with people who have earned the right to feel and hear and see you in that way.
Yes, I agree with that.
So when you're going to a therapist who's going to wring your muscles out and it's going to hurt, that's a safe space, right? But if you just start dating somebody and within 2 weeks you start telling them all your life traumas and they don't react appropriately, they haven't earned the right to actually listen and hear to your story. And even how do you even know they're going to be there for you? How do you know they're going to receive it well? How do you know they even care enough to know about your deep-rooted traumas? Not everybody does. And not everybody can handle it because they haven't dealt with their own traumas. Yeah. It's not that they're uncaring. They're just like, whoa. And internally, it might bring up something from their own childhood. And they're like, I don't want to even deal with this anymore. Yeah. Right? So yeah, just bringing up in the right space, I think is very, very important. But to basically answer your question, it took me a long time. And I don't even think I fully was able to release. I would still go and cry and I would feel a little bit better. And then afterwards, I'd be like, what is the situation here that you can't let go? I mean, I know what it is. It's literally that. Yeah, I couldn't. There was never a space for me to fully let go in my life and then make sure somebody's there to catch me. Yeah. That has never happened for me. From mom, dad, partners, it just hasn't. And maybe partly I haven't allowed it in my relationships, or maybe I've picked partners who were similar to my parents in certain ways. But yeah, it's a thing that I continuously work on.
Do you also think it could be potentially, and this is just a thought that I had, that like, have you even allowed yourself to catch you? Like, if you do cry or you do scream, have you allowed yourself the grace and not judged yourself for doing that?
I know by myself I'm good.
Yeah, okay.
But, so with me, I do it. With me, I can go deep. I can do the ugly cries. I can just have a 10-day silent meditation on my own and go through all the things. That I'm totally fine with. But it's doing it in front of others. So like going and crying to a friend, or when I'm sad, picking up the phone and calling somebody and saying, I'm sad. I can't do that. I make sure my wave passes. I do my things to make sure I'm good. And that's when I call friends. Yeah. So sometimes I would go MIA. Friends are just randomly calling and checking in, respond to text a week later. And then at some point they'll be like, what is the matter with you? I'm like, I was just in a funk. And they're like, but call us so we can help. I would hear this so often, but I just internally couldn't trust it that they're going to be there. And I didn't even want to burden them. I thought it would just be like too much. I'll deal with my sadness. But then I realized it's hurting some of my friendships. Because they would say, we call you when we're having a panic attack. And you're not calling us when you're a bit sad or when you're going through a breakup or when you're devastated. And I was like, yeah, I don't know how to do it. I mean, some friends stayed through that knowing that I do this and they were still supportive and messaging, hey, we're thinking of you. We know you're in your little cave, but we're here. And then others, I would get a message after a year of friendship. Hey, thank you for being there for me all these times, but I can't be friends with you anymore because like you just, you go MIA. And I'm like, all right, I guess. Best of luck. Yeah. It's just like, I'm not going to force anybody to stay, but I also understand that's also unsettling for the others who want to care. And they're like, you're not really letting us in, but that's a me thing.
Yeah. I do believe everybody like heals and goes on their like own way and knows what works for them. Cause some people like, they just might not want to be vocal about what like their stuff and they do process it internally before sharing it. Yeah. But I get that.
No, I mean, the biggest thing one thing that you were talking about so much is like something that I've personally dealt with a lot in people is, the MIA. I'm okay with it because when people talk to me about it, they're like, yo, like I'm struggling. This is not the week. And I was like, hey, no worries. I said, but that being said, if you ever need to call me, call me. And then I just leave it. And then if they respond to me in 2 months, if they respond to me in 2 years, I'm like, all right, it's just, I don't know. I'm a big person on giving people the space that they need when they need it. And then if they want to come back, then I just am, and when they come back, giving people the ability to just be them and holding that space for them. It's just, and also too, I know this sounds weird, but not having an ego about it. Because I think a lot of people are just like, like, oh, I didn't contact this person back, or I didn't, make this a big thing, or, I'm really trying to deal with this on my own. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. Like, I just kind of shrug my shoulders. I'm like, okay, like, you need me? I'm here for you. If you don't, no worries. And you can always just come back to it when you need it. And I'm a huge believer on that.
I love that. I love the giving space,
Yeah.
letting people do what they do. Like Mel Robbins has this new book called Let Them. And she has this like let them theory. Have you guys heard about it?
I actually have.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's great. And it's so funny because it's so common sense. Let people do what they want to do and what feels good for them. And then you choose if you want to accept that or not.
Yep.
And it's so funny because it's so like, it should be common sense. I'm going to let you do you. And if it works for me, we can continue our friendship. And if it doesn't, then it was nice knowing you. We'll just be acquaintances and maybe like each other's posts on Instagram.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. But I love that. Just giving the space and not having an ego when they come back as to why didn't you call me to lean on me?
Well, to me,
they couldn't.
Not to be this person, but to me, the fact that you're concerned that I didn't call you, to me, that's coming up as like you care more about yourself right now than me because something was triggered in you when I didn't respond to you and you weren't actually thinking about my well-being. That's the way I see it. I'm just like a true friend, in my opinion, will like give you the space. Like we'll be there to support you when you needed to be supported. It's just like, I'm focusing on me right now. Like I'm going through some stuff. Like I'm sorry that I didn't answer your text about lunch. You know what I mean? You have to respect that. But to me, that is coming from like, they need the validation that you're still there for them. And you didn't give them that, even though you were going through some stuff. And they weren't giving you any grace either. So why should I give you it right now either? That's the way I see it. I'm just like, I want people who support me and like Mel says, like, let them go, let them come. Like who's meant for you will stay and support you through any aspect of life. Yeah. But let alone that is easier said than done. Because me and Matt talked about this in our last episode. People do have attachment issues. They're scared of letting go of things that are not for them. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother can of worms we can open.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say about that is that some people think that every relationship and friendship needs to last a lifetime.
Nothing lasts a lifetime. Yeah. Nothing in this world does. Unfortunately, we've talked about this Vipassana, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Everything is constantly dying and being reborn. There is absolutely nothing permanent in this lifetime. There's not.
Yeah, and in Vipassana, you learn this word called anicca, which literally means the law of impermanence. So impermanence. And I love that you said everything is constantly being born and then dying and reborn.
So what dies comes,
Yeah. And the example that's given in Vipassana is when you look at a candle, let's say you're just staring at the flame. You're staring at the flame and you think, oh, this candle is always on. But underneath it, it's burning, right? That flame is constantly, it's like something's burning and then it's dying again. But we don't see that because it's this continuous burn and it shows through the candle actually being done at some point. The wax is done. There's no more flame, right? And it's the same with our bodies. Our nails grow, our hair grows, right?
Our cells are dying at like every second.
Exactly.
Every second, yeah.
And so the person I was maybe when I walked in here with you guys is a different person than now because literally on a molecular level, we're all changing constantly. So it's just so important to keep that in mind. Also in the bigger scheme of things, yes, people come, people go, people die, animals die. It's extremely sad and it impacts me an insane amount. Yet at the end, I remind myself once I come out of that deep grief that this is life. Things are impermanent. It's sunny. You're happy about it. If you're going to be so ecstatic that when it starts to get cloudy, your day is ruined. I mean, then you're constantly being impacted and your mood's constantly changing by the whole law of nature.
I just think it's so beautiful though, because if anything, what I got from Vipassana too is I'm like, with every death is another rebirth. So like, it's kind of like your skin, right? Like your skin cells are constantly dying. And if you don't brush them off, they're going to accumulate and become all nasty and gross. And that's how your life's going to accumulate. If you don't like brush out the dead stuff, you're never allowing for like that new, clean, shiny surface to come into your life and be brighter. Like, to me, like, what you're losing is never actually a loss. It's going to be replaced by something else. Energy never dies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that you said that. So it's like a side note that you should scrub your skin to have shiny skin.
Actually, though.
I love that.
One thing that also, like, that you immediately said that just totally was like, whoa. And it's something that I've dealt with in the past with people that I know in my personal life and also clients, is that like they feel stuck. And you just said, like, I'm not the same person that I was 20 minutes ago. I am in totally different, and like I am the same, but I'm not, and like I'm constantly moving, constantly shifting, constantly, changing. And I just am like, God, that's just, and you're right, on a molecular level, absolutely. And this, by the way, coming from a biologist. So yes, you have the stats to back that up.
Yeah.
And the thing is it's also just amazing because we are always able to change, always able to grow, always able to do something different. And then that, challenges, so many preconceived notions on like, man, my life is never going to get better. Nothing's ever going to change. This is what I chose. This is what I'm stuck with. It's just, yeah. And so being able to constantly make those changes and recognize that you can be a different human and you can make the changes for the better for yourself in any capacity it's awesome.
Yeah, I love that you said that because it's so true that some people feel stuck at times and some people think, oh, now I need to go sign up for a new gym membership or go to a new yoga studio. But I would say your day-to-day life, if you are getting out of bed and you're putting yourself through different things that happens in life, you're learning. And every experience is teaching you something. So whether you're traveling, whether you're washing your clothes, if you're fully in that moment, things are going to, like, light bulbs will go off. Little micro ones.
It'll present itself to you.
Exactly. And we're growing through every experience we have, right? So for me, I went on a trip to Cambodia. It was supposed to be a 1-month trip. It turned out to be almost 4 months. And I literally had a job contract signed for 3 days after I was supposed to get back. So a month in Cambodia, I was supposed to come back. And then 3 days later, I was going to start a job. And a week before the job started, and of course, the job to me presented security, significance, certainty, right? I'm going to come back. I'm going to travel. I'm going to eat, pray, love. I'm going to come back and hit the ground running. A week before it, I thought, well, I got a one-way ticket for a reason. And I don't feel like this job is going to go through. And then my logical side said, you already signed a contract and you're going to be like the manager of this little startup, this little office. And I thought, yeah, but my intuition is saying it's not going to happen. So I emailed the HR lady and I said, hey, what's going on? Get a response back. Hey, actually, we don't have the funding for this position. Okay. So my logical brain is like, what? Uncertainty? What are you going to do? And I thought, okay, well, I can go back to LA and start looking for a new job, or I can just keep staying here and just keep growing. But the plan wasn't to go to Cambodia and grow. It was just to go to Cambodia and just live life day by day. Just live.
But that's how you grow, though. Yeah.
That's
like
what I'm
there are
saying.
always opportunities showing up for you to grow. You don't have to go out looking, and it doesn't have to be this hard thing.
Exactly.
It's just do the thing, listen to your intuition, and that will bring you down the path of growth. Be open to it. Just don't resist it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the most beautiful things start unfolding. Of course, for 2 weeks, I was kind of depressed because I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? And this wasn't the plan. And I'm a semi-planner, semi-spontaneous person. So one usually takes the lead and then the other one follows. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And then I was like, okay, instead of hopping around, I'm just going to get an Airbnb for 2 weeks. I'm going to stay here. And what do I love doing? Working out. There aren't really huge gyms there. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go to yoga. I love yoga. Went for a yoga class, showed up at a Pilates class, ended up staying an hour extra because the next person coming on was a sound healer. Her and I walked past each other when I was going to go use the restroom. And she said, are you going to stay for my class? And I thought, I have nothing but time. Of course, stayed for her class. Then at the end, I was still stretching on my mat. And this girl starts talking to the sound healer. And I'm like, I really like her vibe. So we eventually hit it off. She comes and sits across my mat. We start talking. She's going to Vipassana in a few weeks. And so we talk about Vipassana. Her and I became friends, started hanging out here and there. And at one point she said, hey, I'm going to go visit some friends, musicians in another city. Do you want to come with me? And I thought, I have nothing but time. Let's go do it. And we vibed. So 12.5-hour bus ride, laying like sardines. That was a whole experience of its own. We get there. And then I all of a sudden found myself in this beautiful place on like kind of like a lake river type of place. Me, my friend, and another person at this hotel. And I'm like, what? Like, pinch me. What am I doing here? I was supposed to be in LA at this job wearing my fake scrubs and just like doing what I do best. And I'm literally every day here with these humans, just like learning and growing. So some of the best friendships came out of that trip. And then I thought, how is it that I've lived in LA most of my life? And I have a lot of great friends here. But how did those friendships become so much more meaningful and we bonded so much quicker compared to the people here? It's because you were going through experiences together.
Mhm.
Whereas here, you work and then you might go on a hike together,
Yeah.
right? You work and you might go to lunch together. Very different than you're like, hey, I live in a third world country and my work is kind of remote. Do you want to just go travel for a bit? I feel like we rarely do that here because we need that financial stability in LA and in the US way more than you needed when
Yeah,
you're
you
out
do.
and about.
That's true.
So after that 3 months and 3 weeks experience, I literally felt like I was a different person. And I got to fully be me and let go of doing. And I got to embody the being. I hadn't embodied being in my entire life. And I'm so grateful that that job fell through, even though for 2 weeks I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Because it led me down this path of my intuition saying, stay, and you'll know when it's time to go back home. And it was just beautiful. And I got to fall in love with beautiful human beings. And I'm still in touch with some of these human beings. And just, it's just that experience for me. As soon as I get stressed now, I literally go back to there and I'm like, life can change in a matter of a moment.
Completely.
So any decision that comes your way and you think, oh, I'm curious about this, turn the rock, go for it. Your intuition says, go do this, go do it. Not crazy things like jumping off a bridge without a parachute, but you get what I'm saying
Yeah.
in life. And also take things with grace as they come. You apply for all these jobs, you want the jobs, they don't happen. There's a greater meaning for it. There's just something behind it. And I feel like the universe is kind of conspiring to help us get to the place that we're supposed to get
It's
to.
for you. It's not against you.
Exactly.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
just like The Alchemist, right?
Yeah.
It's literally everything
Oh, I
is
love
trying
that
to
book.
help
That
you.
book is such a good book.
Yeah, I
The
forgot to add that
Alchemist.
one in there.
Oh,
but
so I
love
can
that
add
book.
it. That is such a good book.
Yeah.
So it really seems that just you harnessing the power of listening to your intuition has brought you honestly to where you are today and having all these incredible experiences. Do you have any advice on how people can get more in tune with listening to their gut and their intuition and following it?
Yeah, I would say that everything you need is within you. And we always say you have a second brain in your gut. That's how we say gut feeling. So when you get an intuitive feeling, and not everybody's in touch with their intuition, sometimes it can be anxiety, sometimes it can be fear. But I would say try to seek help from the people that you trust. Find a good therapist, find a good coach, somebody who can help you shed all those limiting beliefs that you have. And once the limiting beliefs and doubts are gone, the doubts might come and go in your head. But once those are gone, then you've cleared the way to actually feel what your body's telling you. So when I met you two, perfect example. I literally was drawn to both of you. I thought, oh my God, I love their energy. And I didn't think we're going to be friends and we're going to do a podcast together. But then we started chatting and it was raining. It was pouring rain at the event we were at. And I thought, these are my people. That they showed up on a rainy day, as I did, walking through puddles to get to this place that didn't even have really umbrellas for us. So we're literally like, so we're ready. We're ready to get our half makeup messed up, our clothes wet. And my intuition was just like, I really like these people. So it was like nudging me, right? It was like, alert, alert. And I was like, oh, I get a good feeling just by looking at them because you guys were standing close to me. And then I turned around and we started chatting. So again, when you get the stuff out of the way that's not serving you, then you can very clearly hear what your intuition is saying. Now, that being said, a lot of times we don't listen to it out of fear. Because let's say if I thought, oh, if I go talk to them, what if they don't like me? That thought did not come across my mind. But if it had, then I might have held back, right? So that's what we might do. Or we think, oh, like the teaching job I applied for. Oh, it says 5 years of experience. I don't have 5 years. Who am I to apply? Then I don't apply and I hold myself back. Apply anyway. Ask the person out anyway. You want to go on the trip, go. Of course, make sure you have finances so you're not homeless when you come back. Make sure everything's in order. But it's just so easy. And I think we were made to have a community and we thrive on having a good community around us. And there is a time in our lives when we're not going to have that. When we go through crazy exponential growth spurts, I believe that at times we'll feel very lonely because not everybody has caught up to us yet. And it doesn't mean that we're better than them. It just means now we're on a different wavelength. So if I'm here and my friends, some of them are here and some of them are here, just in different areas, I might not have that many people around me who can kind of like nudge me in the right direction. And I would say that's when you tap into your intuition and you go do the things that you know are good for you, like the yoga, the meditation, the sound healing. Because while you're there, those people's vibrations are similar to you. They might not know you, but they're there and they're going to help you kind of reach the goal that you want to reach. So yeah, that would be my little takeaway.
That was so beautiful. I couldn't agree more with all of that. And I do believe that intuition, when you actually I like to just take a beat and listen to myself, and I'm like, is this for me? And a lot of times right off the bat, yes or no. And then it is a tool that once you start listening to it more, the more you don't even question it, the more you just know if it's your intuition or if it is anxiety or something that's coming from a fearful place. So I think that was so beautiful.
Thank you.
On that note too, to kind of wrap everything up, is there one last word of advice you would like to give to our viewers?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest takeaway would probably be staying true to yourself, because when you stay true to yourself, you realize that nobody can walk your path, nobody can make choices for you, and nobody can make you doubt yourself. Okay? We do all that on our own. So the more we stay true to ourselves and are authentic and just show up as who we are, the more aligned and fulfilling life is going to be for you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. For our viewers, we will go ahead and link where to find her below. We will link all the resources she also gave us. And just thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was such a great conversation.
No,
and
this was.
I can't
Thank you.
wait to continue with you guys off the mics.
Oh yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
super excited. And until next time, you guys, I love you.
Thank you so much, and keep shining your light.
Bye,
Sam.
everyone.
I love that.